The father of the accused high school shooter is now on trial in connection to that shooting. Both he and his son are facing charges. Colin Gray, the father, is the first of the pair to stand trial. It is day 5 of his trial today inside of a Barrow County Superior Courtroom. And that is where our Grace King has been all day long. She joins us now live. Grace, what is the update here? We checked in with you about an hour ago. What has the jury been hearing since we last spoke?
Well, Colt's grandma testified for most of the morning, and she just wrapped up in about the last half hour or so talking about, the Gray family's home life, the struggles they had, and how she tried to intervene and help. We heard from her for quite a while this afternoon, but she finished up on the stand. She says that in the weeks leading up to the shooting, Colt was kind of on this downward spiral. She says she kept telling Colin that he needs professional help. They kept reaching out, and that she got a really, really concerning text from him just 2-3 weeks before the shooting. Take a listen to what she had to say.
If I do something terrible, would you still love me? I think that's the way it was worded. I asked him why he would say that, later, and I said, why would you think that I wouldn't love you? And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, why would you think about doing something terrible? And he said, I don't know, I was just asking.
Okay.
And of course, my first thought was suicide.
Yeah, I can see that.
I went back up there, and in a conversation we had a day or two later,
Okay.
we were going to McDonald's to get food, and I can't even remember how the conversation started. But he asked me if I knew Nick Cruz, and I looked at him and I said, I've never heard of him. I didn't know who he was. And he looked at me and he said, are you serious? And I said, yeah. He said, well, have you heard of the Parkland school shooting? I said, absolutely. I read all about it, but I don't remember who did it. And he said, Nicholas Cruz did.
And that grandma, she called around to mental health facilities to see where could get him in. She said that she called Advantage Behavioral Health in Athens, but they said that a parent would have to drop him off. She suggested to Colin that they bring him in ASAP. It was possibly on Saturday when they typically were a little bit slower. GBI investigators also testified this morning that from the entryway of Colt's door, when you looked in, there was about a 4-foot-tall shrine to Nicholas Cruz, that Parkland shooter, on his wall. They had newspaper clippings and photographs of Nicholas Cruz, something they obviously thought was concerning.
In Grace, the prosecution here, as legal experts and yourself have detailed, trying to make the case to the jury that Colin Gray had sufficient warning that something bad may happen, and despite knowing that, still provided the firearm to his son that was allegedly used to commit this school shooting. What is the defense saying during these proceedings?
Well, Zach, the key phrase you used there is sufficient warning, and jurors will have to decide what is or isn't sufficient warning. So, of course, we heard the grandma saying that she had all these mental health concerns. She had these conversations with Colt Gray about the Parkland shooter, about his possibly if I did something terrible. The defense is saying, okay, but did you tell Colin? Did Colin know that? I know you knew that, but you're not his legal guardian. What did Colin know? So they've really been asking some of those follow-up questions. The grandma says, this happened 2 years ago. She wasn't 100% sure what she had or hadn't told Colin in those conversations. She said they had talked about his mental health, but she didn't know if she had passed along, say, Colt's odd questions about the Parkland shooter or the terrible things. So they're just trying to figure out what Colin knew, how much Colin knew, and when. Because again, this entire indictment is based on that sufficient warning phrase. Even if there were all these things happening, if Colin didn't actually know about them, it would be hard to bring the criminal case. So the state is presenting his case witness by witness to show all of the warning signs, but the defense is trying to say, jurors, look closely, which warning signs could be considered sufficient.
And that is going to be the crux of this case that is now on its 5th day, expected to take several weeks. Our Grace King is going to be there for every one of them. Grace, thank you very much.